menggunakan bahasa Indonesia. Perkenalkan, nama saya Ismail. Saya dari lembaga sigap dari Yogyakarta. Tadi saya melihat dari pengalaman hari pertama dan hari kedua ini sangat luar biasa, informasi dan wawasan saya jadi semakin bertambah mengenai teknologi dan juga mengenai isu anak. Dan saya melihat bahwa kita semua pasti memiliki mendapatkan pengaruh sosial. Misalnya saat kita bertemu langsung dengan orang tua, kita dalam hidup bermasyarakat, pasti kita memiliki adanya norma sosial. Misalnya kita harus menjaga kesopanan, menghargai orang yang lebih tua, adanya toleransi dan lain sebagainya. Semua itu norma-norma yang bagus atau positif. Dan sekarang saya melihat semua orang itu membutuhkan teknologi sebagai alat untuk bertemu dengan orang yang lain atau orang yang jauh di sana dan mendapatkan informasi yang lebih luas melalui teknologi. Mungkin tanpa harus bertemu langsung. Karena setiap orang yang menggunakan internet pasti ingin mendapatkan lebih banyak informasi. Nah, apakah ada norma hidup berinternet yang mungkin belum ada, yang belum dikenal di masyarakat gitu? Misalnya apa sih yang harus dibuka atau misalnya sekarang kan gadget itu seperti, internet itu seperti kitab gitu. Informasi apapun kita bisa dapat di situ. Nah, di dalam internet itu pasti ada dampak yang bagus dan tidak bagus. Dan manusia itu pasti juga bisa mendapatkan pengaruh dari penggunaan internet itu. Misalnya pengaruh yang negatif jadi mengikuti dampak yang buruk itu. Itu salah satu dampak buruknya ada internet. Jadi teknologi itu seperti pisau, bisa digunakan untuk yang bermanfaat seperti memotong atau untuk memasak misalnya gitu. Sedangkan pisau itu juga bisa digunakan hal negatif seperti untuk membunuh misalnya, itu analoginya. Jadi penggunaan teknologi bisa membuat bingung manusia yang menggunakannya. Jadi apakah ada norma berinternet, hidup berinternet? Dan saya meminta tanggapan dari tiga pembicara di depan dari praktek yang sudah dilakukan itu. Bagaimana, apakah ada praktek bagus dengan mengharmonisasikan antara norma sosial yang ada dengan norma berinternet? Jadi mungkin praktek bagusnya bisa diceritakan dari ketiga pembicara. Intinya agar bisa mencegah dampak buruk dari internet. Ya. Karena bisa jadi norma berinternet dan norma hidup sosial bermasyarakat itu mungkin ada yang berbeda. Apakah ada norma hidup berinternet atau mungkin di waktu yang akan datang juga akan ada norma hidup berinternet. Jadi saya berpikir juga bisa membuat suatu saat ada norma hidup berinternet karena sekarang mungkin belum ada. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. So basically around the more increasing integration of the internet into daily life. And where in daily life our behavior is shaped by our social norms, our values, and with the internet becoming so much part of our daily lives, what is your experience? What are smart practices in introducing norms and in building behaviors and values around the use of internet, so that it doesn't become like a knife. A knife can be used positively, to cut and shape things, but it can also be used to damage. And so that's the question around how any experiences around developing and building social norms with regard to technology and particularly with the internet. So hold on to that one. At the back, Ibu Yeni, please. Hang on. The mic's coming, Yeni. Okay, go.
Thank you for the presentations from three resource persons. I really enjoyed the presentations. I would like to address my questions to Mas Dedy and then put the suggestions to Mbak Meiske from SabangMerauke. Because Mas Dedy said about the SiBerkreasi is also working on positive news using media. Yeah, for hoax, for bullying, for false news, it is easy to determine. But then who decide what is positive news? Yeah, how that is decided within SiBerkreasi network or management. Yeah, because in my experience working with stigmatized and very vulnerable people, for example, one of them is transgender. In a dominant perspective, all of news in regards to transgender is always negative. Yeah. Or religious minority, for example. In Indonesia, there is a lot of prejudices that makes the intention for tolerance, for example, for religious minority is suppressed by the dominant ethics that this is not a good news. And even our government, although there is a lot of policy mentioning about inclusive development, is also still not wanting to talk about those sensitive issues such as the victims of gross human rights violations, the issues of LGBTI and transgender. So I'm curious about how the practice of SiBerkreasi to determine this is a good news, this is a positive news, with the suppress perhaps also for general population that adheres to a certain norms. Yeah, in comparison to all of the minorities that we also still have in Indonesia. And for Mbak Meiske, I would like to suggest in the next, I think that what you did was really, really important, yeah, to introduce the kids through a lot of different interactions with religions, different religion, but I would like to suggest that in the next sessions of SabangMerauke, you could also introduce the local beliefs of Indonesia, which is nowadays in Ministry of Education, there is 185 local beliefs already exist and registered, and I think that there is many more in Indonesia because that is the populations that is still receive a lot of prejudice and stigmatized. And even these religions are the religions of our ancestor. Now, in some location, they even have difficulty to be buried in local cemetery because they are not a part of the sixth religion. Thank you.
Thanks, Bu Yeni. There's one, Ibu, and then Basrit, and then...
Okay, thank you. My name is Andri. I'm from Save the Children, Yayasan Sayangi Tunas Cili. I would like to ask two questions. One from Pak Dedy. How far this is a very good program, and I think I want to ask related to how you have a strategy for scaling up, because if this good program can introduce to all youth people through the school, for example, for example, we can use the channel of OSIS or mandatory program from the Ministry of Education, yeah, to encourage all the student or all the school to get this program. I think that will be more strategic to get more student and also youth to be aware about this SiBerkreasi. Yeah. And then another things for Ibu Meiske, we see also that some of religious leader here in Indonesia also, you know, that's become an obstacle or have intolerance through their, you know, they are very influence, yeah, to the society. So do you have like a strategy also for this to approach or to yes, to approach, yeah, how to for the religious leader that have like intolerance view? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Last one.
Thank you. My name is Astrid from the Australian Embassy, and I'd like to ask comments from Meiske and Mas Dedy on the issue around the ability of the children to cope with social and social media pressure, using the examples of Afi from Banyuwangi. I guess we all are familiar with the story, as well as the great work that Meiske in Sabang and Merauke have been doing. So Meiske, what you're doing is really great, and to have such video portraying what those children are experiencing during their involvement in the SabangMerauke initiative is really great. And I guess it has lots of positive messages that can be spread around globally, not necessarily only locally or nationally, using the media, using internet, which Dedy has lots of things to share with. But again, learning from what Afi has experienced, I think earlier this year or last year, where she tried to promote positivism, tolerance, and other great things that youth could ever think of, actually was quite counterproductive for herself. The social media pressure was so huge, she couldn't cope with it, and basically she has now gone and not able to continue the great things that she was doing. So what I was afraid, or what I'm afraid is, or probably not really afraid, but probably to Meiske, are you doing something to help preparing those children to cope with the pressures which will certainly come under heightened intolerance in Indonesia? And to Mas Dedy, if you could share your thinking on how the great works that Meiske is doing could be helped mitigated in terms of the negative impacts of the social media pressure on the children themselves. So I'm sure Meiske is able to handle that, but whether the children who are the beneficiaries or the participants of SabangMerauke might not be able to cope with such huge pressure. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Excellent questions, and it's like you were saying, Veronica. The more you go into it, the more complex the issues that we're dealing with. So, any smart responding? Any smart practices? Any processes that you're aware of?
So I can give a bit of information about the governance, and there are some discussions happening globally in relation to net neutrality, which is essentially this idea that the internet should not be owned by a few corporations, which is kind of the situation we are in now. And these are really, really crucial discussions that we should participate in. A lot of us are not aware of what is happening. So there are discussions that are constantly ongoing on net neutrality, and we should participate in those. There is an organization, and it seems like there's a similar one here in Indonesia, which is international, which is called the Internet Governance Forum. It's a fairly open forum. I think I haven't been to it yet, but this is where people have discussions about the ethics of the internet, etc. So these things are happening. What we do know is that voluntary codes don't work. Look at Facebook. It's constantly getting criticized and getting into trouble because of how it deletes certain, women's rights activism websites, but it leaves incitement to hatred and to genocide. In Myanmar, for example, they were just criticized yesterday for allowing, certain incitement to hatred. So the self-regulation that the silicon companies are talking about don't work. And I was reading somewhere, someone said, if you leave the tech companies to self-regulate, it's like asking some guy who writes, the instruction manual for a fridge, but applying that to human behavior. So it doesn't work. We have to participate in these discussions, and we have to demand that we participate. But at the end of the day, I know that behaviors online are different, but it's humans, right? So we're always going to have a good side and a less good side. And unfortunately, what happens online is that the nastiness that you have in some people just explodes. Nobody's looking at them, so they feel they can spew even more hatred than they would ever do to someone face to face. But at the end of the day, it's human behavior. So there's only so much you can do. But there are conversations happening, but for the moment, unfortunately, because it's all pretty much owned by corporations, it's limited. But, we do have to participate in these discussions.
How about you, Ms. Dedy? Any also perspectives on smart practices or approaches addressing social norms like the video you were showing? But then also in responding to Bayeni about, between social and social media, anti-social media, but in terms of social media, how social are you going to, who's actually driving that agenda, and who makes the decisions on what is actually broadcasted?
Okay, ethics in the internet is a very interesting topic to be discussed right now. At the international level, as I already mentioned earlier, we have Internet Governance Forum at the international level, and at the national level, we have some ethics to be discussed. For example, MUI, Majelis Ulama Indonesia, already has kind of a fatwa to encourage people to use internet and social media positively. I think this kind of ethic can be also referred by public in terms of the internet and social media usage. And we can also refer to Undang-Undang ITE at the national level government. For example, how can we, see this is a hoax or not, fake news or not? We can also refer to internet or Undang-Undang ITE in Indonesia. In terms of the ethics, we are also developing some guidelines for public, and we already published some books. You can also check literacydigital.id. You can download there some ethics in the internet and social media. And I think the ethics in the internet is still developing by many stakeholders in Indonesia, and we can also develop from our perspective, for example, from our religion, from our community, and because internet is very dynamic, we can always discuss about this. The next question in terms of the positive news. Okay, in SiBerkreasi, we have a board of advisor. If we are going to decide whether this is good or not, should be done or not, we can go to this board of advisor. In terms of the, acceptance of the new member of SiBerkreasi, for example, if you are going to be a part of SiBerkreasi, you should send your profile, you should send your records digitally. And the board of advisors of SiBerkreasi will decide whether your organization or community can be a part of SiBerkreasi or not. The same case, if we are discussing about a positive or negative news, sometimes there is a gray area that we cannot say, oh, this is positive or this is negative. So we go to the board of advisors. The board advisor here consists of many stakeholders as well, from private sectors, from government, from academician, from CSO, from community. So we will have a comprehensive approach to see whether this is a positive news or not. So that's what we are doing in SiBerkreasi right now. But we are aware that there is a gray area. For example, LGBT issue. This is quite hard for SiBerkreasi to go to this area. Maybe for the gray area, we should consult to our board of advisor. Yeah.
Okay, Meiske?
Oke, Pak Ismail, terima kasih. So it might not be the smartest practice, but in our curriculum, we found out that because we are dealing with teenagers, and teenagers tend to show their emotional feelings, stories, or what we call curhat in the social media. And we found a case, and then what we are doing is like we told the participant that social media or internet is like the pekarangan rumah. So what do you want people to see in front of your home? Whether you want to shout, to be angry in front of your home, or you want to just say the happy things and then keep your sadness and the bad words, or I don't know, the anger inside. So it's more into like how to be polite in the social media, and that reaction might not trigger other person who comment in your social media. So we put the analogy as if what do you want to show in front of your home. And moving on to the next question.
Please.
Okay. And for Ibu Yeni, yes, thank you. It is quite challenging, and why we currently stick to the six religion of Indonesia, because we haven't had enough expertise to put in the curriculum. So actually, I just can say that currently we are play safe, but we are going there. Next year, we try to add at least one of the defable participant with the shadow. And then not in the student exchange forum, but we had this luncheon networking session with the local beliefs. We had a session with Baha'i people, and then we invited also from the Sunda Wiwitan. So we will try to have more networking sessions, but for the more into the adults people currently. And for Ibu Andri, if I'm not mistaken, Ibu Andri from Save the Children.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, you asked how we try to influence for the religious leaders, the extremists, maybe, if I can say, the harder one. The answer is we don't tap them. So we pick our battle instead of draining our energy, and we know that we cannot win the battle right now. So we use the soft diplomatic way. So that's what I say, influence the next leaders, and then we make ally with other religious leaders who have some vision with us. So maybe similar with what Mas Dedy are creating. So we tend to do the campaign in more positive way rather than tackling the negative radicalism way. And then for Ibu Astrid, yes, it is interesting to know and to be questioned and how we prepare this participant to cope with the pressures, as we want them to get back and be the agent of change, the duta damai. So it is a part of feedback that we had. So we put a curriculum of 12 values of peace, one of which is how to handle differences in ideas, and one of which is about conflict resolution. So if there is a conflict, then they know how to cope rather than just avoid or just confront it. So yes, we prepare them not in the early stages, but now we put the curriculum, the 12 values of peace from peace generation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Meiske. Pak Yanwar, Pak Rudi, any points that resonate with you, or particularly around, there's a lot of these gray areas, and you know, as policymakers, it's not just about the principle of the policy, but also the power relations and the biases within that. But yeah, so any points in your experience, how have you dealt with this? Yeah.
Thank you, Pak Petra. I didn't expect that you would ask me.
Sorry, but
I think let us face with the reality. Governing technology is impossible. Controlling technology, especially the advancement of technology, is impossible. The same with innovation. You cannot even regulate innovation. Technology develops. What you can do is create the enabling environments for people, for individuals, for organizations to interact with technology. Two aspects happen here. Okay. The reality in which we live is very much characterized with the progress of technology, which we do not have control about its progress. Can you see the paradox? If you want to do this or not to do this, online, we publish a book. Do you see the paradox? Let me repeat. If you want to know how to use internet ethically or not, whether you can use this or for that one, may or may not, let's read our book. This in itself reflects our lack, I would say, comprehension about the tension. On the one hand, progress. On the other hand, all the societal issues. For our kids especially, this responsibility becomes much, much, much bigger. I agree with you. It's about rights. It's not charity. It is about, you mentioned earlier, how we can work together with all of us to make sure that they receive their rights. We just have problem or challenge in Indonesia. Stunting, more than 30%. Immunization, MR. We still have to reach the 95% target, otherwise there will be no herd immunity. Is it an exercise of power because of what you mentioned, protection, or because we understand it is right of children? So I think never before we live in a world and an age in which the paradox of progress, but also how we would like to see the humanity being, I don't know the right words, protected, civilized, I don't know, because I think what happens online reflects what happens offline.
In real life,
You can argue with it. You can debate me. So, again, because we are not capable, well, that's not the right words, because it is very difficult, if not impossible, to govern, let alone to regulate how technology will progress while it characterizes our life. What we can do is to make sure we create enabling environments in which individuals, society, groups, governments even, to be able to deal with it in a wiser way. I told you earlier, even academics is lagging behind one step. Policy, 2 steps, it may be more. So this kind of gathering is important for us as a way to understand where we are. It is about reality check. As government, we do not, I talked to Pak Rudi, perhaps just because we don't communicate to each other. I don't know about SabangMerauke.
Yeah.
If I knew before, I would like to be part of it.
Yeah.
While Indonesia is very chatty, right? We are the capital of Twitter.
Yeah.
Right? Most of Indonesians tweet. We put everything in Instagram. In the past time, before we eat, we pray. Now, we take picture and put it in Instagram. This kind of new world, I think, poses new challenges. Not just for academics and the academic reflection, social or economic impacts of technology, not just for civil society, how you advocate things, but also for government. If we have Industrial Revolution 4.0, how can government become government 4.0?
Yeah.
For 4.0. But it is not about the 4.0. It is about serving the people's interest. In this case, children. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Yanwar. So, coming to the end of the session, just I'd like to ask each of the speakers if you have a main takeaway, a point of reflection for each of you. How about we start from Meiske, and then so we'll work the other way around.
Okay, so to sum up, I can say that diversity and tolerance cannot just be taught, especially in front of classes, but it must be experienced and felt. And to begin with, maybe we as adults could try to talk, to interact with people who are different. Because sometimes we as an adult are more afraid than children in making friendships, in making new relations. There are a lot of prejudice inside our head. Even when we first came into this room and we saw people who are different, we are afraid to talk. Then we as adults, I encourage you to be open, to talk rather than just teaching tolerance. Thank you.
Thank you, Meiske.
This is our biggest dream in SiBerkreasi, bringing digital literacy into the formal curriculum. Because we see this is a very crucial topic to be delivered to every single kid in Indonesia. And we just want to make sure that every kid in Indonesia can learn how to use social media, how to interact with technology, how to respond to the future technology, and they can be the champion in this transformation. Thank you.
It's going to be hard to be brief. I mean, I'd like to second what my colleague said, and I think the most important thing we can learn children, and actually many adults, is critical thinking. And throughout all the research that has been done around the world, children who are taught to be critical and think critically have been able to stay safe online, and they do go and talk to adults when they're not sure about something. So critical thinking is key. I just wanted to pick up on the issue of the paradox and progress. You know, again, we look, you know, we develop robots to take care of the elderly. I don't call that progress. I call that we've stopped caring about aging population. You know, when did that happen? So it's about our human behaviors. Why do we need to create machines that suck up the pollution? Why can't we just stop polluting the planet? You know, so there's progress for progress' sake, and this is the paradox. Finally, because it's about innovation, I actually had to look up what innovation meant, and the definition I liked the most was new, useful, and surprising. So I want to go back to the point I made earlier, which is about imagination, and to share with you a very surprising thing that happened to me when I went to a tech event. Was the final session I went to was on science fiction. And I learned that the military, even design brand companies, they consult with futurists and sci-fi writers to understand what the world is going to look like. So perhaps we could do a little bit of that and all start reading science fiction. We might find some answers to our problems in sci-fi. That's it.
Okay, so it's been a real honor for myself, and I shouldn't speak on behalf of you, Anna,
it's okay. Pleasure for me as well.
That to be able to moderate this session, and just how do you bring together or summarize all of these points? But I think it's very much, if you look at what we've discussed on a principle-based focus, a principles-focused perspective, I see there's a lot of common common principles that we're talking about, both from what you've been presenting, as well as what's been the responses from the floor, which has been excellent also. So some of the principles that I have noted as common areas that first is the fact that it needs to be forward-looking. We're dealing with existing issues, but it's forward-looking, and particularly it's about the children, it's about future generations, and what is. But when talking about future generations, the other principle is not who knows best and who's determining it, but how do you engage the youth? How do you engage children in what is impacting on them? So I feel that's another principle that really came out clear. How is technology seen as a tool of mass enabling rather than of mass abuse, and so but also how does inclusiveness? We're talking about everything so broad and so wide, but how does inclusiveness start from the individual? And a lot of Meiske and Dedy's work, starting looking at the individual, but then how does that transpose across the broader to the broader generation? And I thought, this, there was that question I gave you at the start, where there's people who have been working in social issues for decades, and then new people coming in, and I think we also often talk about working in an inclusive industry, yet we become quite non-inclusive because you haven't got the credibility yet, or you haven't done the hard miles that other people have done. And so I think another challenge is just how are we open, and how can we embrace different innovations, different surprises that are happening, different approaches, and particularly different individuals, and how that can really enrich what we're doing, because it's so complex. As soon as you peel one layer, you get another layer, another layer, another layer. You're always on. I think the term was, you're always on the chasm, or the brink of a chasm, and so we can only address these issues by working together. So thank you everyone for your participation, and can we also have some applause for our speakers? And so we can now enjoy lunch. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you everyone.